Oh boy, it's the best time of year, that unique time between Christmas and New Year. And I welcome you right now to the Lance Wallnau Show. All around America and around the world, people watch this show and on Liftable TV, and they hear it podcast. We're closing in on like 300,000 downloads a month. And I'm always trying to figure out who it is that is actually downloading this. And, you know, if you're watching this, by the way, on Facebook or something, then you're only getting like the very truncated short version, because most of the stuff that gets me in trouble we put on our podcast. We don't intentionally sabotage ourselves. I listen to Tim Pool, and I'm listening to these other guys who are doing these podcasts because they've got, 400,000 people download in 2 hours. That gets my attention. Like, well, what are they doing? And one of the obviously there's a lot of subject matters that they'll talk about, which I'm not going to probably be into. But the thing that interests me is that there is an audience out there that is interested in something more substantial than clickbait and short staccato-like vignettes on current events and stuff. And so I almost want to move back from doing this flyover of what's happening in the news cycle, because I find it intriguing. I think that the connecting the dots on what's happening out there gives my people a prophetic perspective, and it's something which we really have to have. Matter of fact, I have something I wanted to share with you. It's here in my briefcase. I think I'll find it. It's a strategic intelligence report, which is, and this is from a financial group. And I love how the subtitle is "Making the Complex Simple," which is really what I try to do with what I teach. But their whole point about investment is, I'm telling you, it is so written like a prophetic document ought to be written. Because listen to what he says. And just bear with me, because this is like, I think my dad signed up for these things, and my dad passed away 2 years ago, and he had like these $22,000 advisory letters he'd get, and he was always hoping that I'd get involved with it, because he handled the family's stock and investment, and I handled the family Bible. But then gradually he mentored me in the financial arena, and I got him into the Bible. So it was a great trade-off in his latter years. But this is one of the investment letters that I picked up from him. And here's the guy's talking, and he goes, investing is never easy, he says. You have to take the data as it comes and put it into a broader context. It's not good enough just to pick sides in the growth versus slowdown debate and shout your opinions into the nearest microphone. That approach is for amateurs and TV talking heads. The more rigorous approach, now listen to this, is to ask, why is conflicting data there? Why does it appear? What the data is really saying, and most importantly, put all the data into a single dynamic model to determine which trend will prevail in the intermediate to long-term time frame that investors really care about. And then catch this, he calls this putting together the puzzle. In using our dynamic models, we work hard to avoid cognitive biases. So Mercedes, you're here with me today. I don't know if I introduced you yet, but you're here in the studio with me. Nice. I like your festive attire. You're in festive mode, I see. But I thought you'd appreciate this. You have to look at what the data is really, because you're always into data. And your former job doing data analysis and running companies, the data was a big deal. I mean, the data, it tells a story, doesn't it?
Yeah. We had the catchphrase, data-driven decisions. So we don't go with your intuition. We don't go with what the creative thinks. We go with what's the data saying, what are the users saying. So anyways.
And this is a little bit of my problem with our own community, the prophetic community that I'm a part of. And listen to where he describes us, because we're just like the investor groups out there. So listen to what he says. In using our dynamic models, so the models they've got, it's like we have models. We have the Seven Mountain model. It's kind of like obvious now. Everybody's using it, but we launched it. So we have these different models about gates of influence and about sheep and goat nations. Now we're seeing states like Florida and Texas becoming sovereign ground territories against the beast system, which is really Marxist socialism or dictatorship of the elite controlling your life. That's now in Washington, New York, and in Chicago in terms of the way those cities are being run. So listen to what he says. He says, what you got to do is you got to have models and work hard to avoid cognitive biases, especially confirmation bias. That's when you embrace data that agrees with your thesis and you discard data that doesn't. It's a great way to miss out on what's really going on and get blindsided when the data you discarded turns out to be the most important clue to the puzzle. Instead, we keep all the data in front of us and try to reconcile what first appears anomalous. This can lead to new insights and even revisions to the model if that's needed to properly gauge what's going on. So what I'm saying is you take the folks, the prophetic community. Now, I introduced Donald Trump, to the waffling evangelical charismatic world. I was probably one of the first conspicuous early adopters that wasn't pigeonholed into kind of an eccentric, category of a YouTube prophetic person. I mean, I actually had organizations I'm on the board with. And I was challenging people. I said, I think that Donald Trump is the guy that God's anointed, even though Mike Huckabee is a better Christian. And I know Ben Carson looks like a better Christian. And Ted Cruz is certainly a bit more experienced Christian and senator. And I went right down the list. I said, this guy's the only guy that's not a Christian. For some reason, I think God's doing the unexpected. This is the model. Look at how my point is this. When Donald Trump did not win on November 3rd, and we predicted what would happen in our book. We predicted there'd be a news blackout, that the ballots were going to be counted, and that a surge was going to come in the swing states, and that Trump would be declared the loser by last-minute illegal ballots. And so it was amazing we were able to go there and say that. But what disappointed a whole lot of people regarding me was that I didn't do what a lot of the prophetic people did. They doubled down on what I would say is confirmation bias. That's when you embrace data that agrees with your thesis and discard what doesn't. Yeah. So you have a whole lot of prophets that were saying, he's coming back, he's coming back, he's coming back. And that led into the QAnon group. And we've got a whole lot of you out there that are defenders of Q, and I get that. I know why you do that. You do it because you distrust mainstream media. You know there's a conspiracy going on, and you know that there are people on our side that are trying to send smoke signals to give clear navigation. But I'm telling you, the whole Q thing is shakwad. The point is, the prophetic, you have to guard yourself against setting up what you believe something is supposed to mean and then having confirmation bias, which I assume is, whatever data comes along on the channel you listen to, the prophets you listen to, or you could find news feeds that are all, like I get one, like I read Populist Press. It's kind of hilarious. It's like the National Enquirer of populist optimism. All the headlines overstate what actually is a news cycle, but it's all on our side. Biden finally blows it. He's finished. Fauci won't last another week with this revelation. And the headlines are all like, wow, it's touchdown. But if you're looking at the scoreboard, the points really didn't go up yet. So this is where you can go to those places and you say, yeah, but what about this and what about this? You've got to look for data outside of the places you're looking at it, because the people that, in retrospect, the most accurate prophetic analysis would be Trump will win, it will be stolen. That the apparatus is so corrupt, God is not going to intervene and overturn it. It's going to play its course, and the American people are going to see how rotten the fruit is of the root of a belief system, and in some way it will create the conditions for a national civic awakening that'll bring real, perhaps, reformation to certain parts of culture, rather than most of us living in blissful denial of what's going on, or ignorance, and sending Donald Trump in there to go be the gladiator like Maximus. Hey, if you haven't seen me around as much on the platform recently, it's because all the explosive, incendiary things that I want to say, the Lance Rants, are on the podcast. Go to lancewalnut.com/podcast and hear the unbridled utterance of a Lance Rant.